Welcome to Social Media Masters, the show about creators who have become leaders in their industries by growing a following on social media. From Instagram to TikTok, LinkedIn to YouTube, we will discuss their stories and how they became social media masters. I'm your host, Isaac Child.
Dude, I'm like genuinely super drawn to your social media, to your accounts. Like, the funny thing is, I know your wife personally, but your account popped up on my For You page, and I was like, whoa, this is some serious talent. And little did I know, I don't know you personally, but I know your wife, and I was like, I know that guy. I kind of know that guy. That's super cool. And I saw that you've grown a pretty incredible following on Instagram. I checked out your TikTok. You've got over 10,000 over there as well. It's easy to call you a social media master. So I'm excited to dive in a little bit to, what has gotten you to this point. But I want to start all the way from the beginning, Ben. So you're obviously known for your photography. What got you into photography, and why did you decide to pursue that?
Well, I've been really into photography for a really long time. Like, since I was like 7 years old, I always wanted to play with my parents' cameras, just because I thought that was like the coolest thing ever, was to take pictures. It just, the magic of making an image kind of come to life from something was really big. Even though when I was a kid, I was just taking pictures of like dumb stuff around the house and like ducks and stuff, but that was like the coolest thing ever for me. And then I really got into it kind of around like 2017. I started wanting to get into astrophotography. So like taking pictures of the stars was something I couldn't do on my phone. And so I had to learn how to use a real camera. So I really got into it then. And then like 2020 came around, and I was really bored, and I just didn't have very much to do. And so I was going out a lot, trying to find something to do that was creative, and photography really came back for me at that moment. And ever since then, it's just kind of become a weekly thing for me at this point.
That's awesome. Based on what I've seen from your work, I would have thought that this has been like a 15-year venture from when you were young. You're incredibly talented. The photos you take are spectacular. Like, every single one, I'm like, I could see this in a Nature magazine, and something. Like, they are all super, super impressive. So that's really cool that in a short amount of time you've really ramped up. How did you learn? I mean, was it all just practice? Did you find somebody that was able to kind of teach you?
You can ask my wife about that. So many hours and hours and hours on YouTube till 3 a.m. was hyper fixated on the littlest things. What's this? What's 16-bit? How does this all work together? I just would spend so much time on YouTube. Messaging other creatives was really important in me learning. I have so many great landscape photographer friends that are down in Utah, Idaho, across the United States, who've all helped me a lot. And really, that community is what kind of got me from being very basic to more of a professional level photographer.
That's super cool. What did those initial conversations look like with the people that you're reaching out? Like, dude, I like your stuff. How do you take those pictures? What did that look like?
Embarrassing. So awkward. I felt like I had, so many different people that I really looked up to who were super encouraging, and I loved their work. I think of people like Johnny Romes, and I think of Chris Burkard, and just tons of people like that who are super popular, interesting photographers in the landscape photography community and adventure photography community. And reaching out to them for the first time was super intimidating, but they were always super nice. They helped a ton with kind of figuring out the basics and kind of getting into stuff. But really, now that I look back at it, I get asked those questions all the time, and I would never, ever feel bad about sharing that information. It's always so, what's the word? Makes me feel really good, basically, to help people kind of get to where I am by answering those questions like I got answered forever ago.
Yeah. So if you had to give some advice right off the bat to somebody who's wanting to do it, it's don't be afraid to ask, right?
Oh yeah, don't be afraid to ask. Most photographers are so kind and are so helpful. We've all been at that exact same position. Most of us didn't go to school for it, so we don't have a official background. We learned from other people. If they aren't nice to you, then they kind of suck. You shouldn't be friends with them and look up to them. So
I like that.
Answer your questions.
Well, very cool. Besides YouTube and these other people, I mean, how many hours were you just out taking pictures, bringing them back and editing them, before you felt oh, I'm really proud of that picture that I took?
Oh, boy. I think that I thought I was a lot better in the beginning than I really was. So I'd
I
come
like
home,
it.
this is freaking sick. This is the best photo I've ever taken. And then now I look back and I'm like, gosh, bro, my edits that I used to put on stuff. I think for shooting, I was spending a lot of time outdoors and just trying to like take as many photos as I possibly could. I used to take like thousands of photos on a shoot, and now I'll take like 40 or 50, just like whatever I feel like looks the best. And then I'd come home and watch tons of YouTube videos about editing, and then like trying to replicate other videographers, other photographers, Short Stash, Peter McKinnon, watching those videos all the time. Hours and hours and hours. And I don't think I really saw good results until about a year into taking my photos.
Wow.
So whether I knew that they were bad or not, it wasn't until then that I started to be like seeing some success, some real success.
And the whole time, like, what did you have a goal of like, I want this to be like my business, my thing, or was it kind of just a hobby?
You know, since I was in like high school, I used to say like, oh, like my dream job is to be a National Geographic photographer. That was like the coolest thing. I'd watch Secret Life of Walter Mitty. It was like the obsession in my brain. But I always kind of was like, that's not super like realistic thing to do. So I've gone to school. I have a bachelor's degree in physiology and developmental biology at BYU. And I'm applying to medical school right now, so I'm on the wait list for 2 medical schools still. So even though I'm still living the dream and kind of doing all the professional photography I've ever wanted to, I'm still kind of going down that other path because I kind of like the idea of doing both at the same time. I feel like I can make both work.
That's way cool. That's super cool. I think that's encouraging for those that are like, I really want to pursue this, but it's always good to, continue to pursue those things that you're confident in, like school and getting your degree, moving on in the medical field. Good luck to you with those being on the wait list, and hopefully that works out. But that is super cool. So I always like to do a little bit of research on my guests before they come on the show. Not a lot of people know this, but Instagram has a little about section on the account that tells you when the account was created. And your Instagram account was created back in September of 2013. So at this time, was that just your personal account? And why did you create the Instagram account?
Personal account. You could go back, way back, and see some of my old stuff from high school. Super fun. Weird, random stuff. It's kind of like an Easter egg for people that follow me now. If you can get all the way down to the bottom there. And I made the Instagram account just because I wanted to share more of my stuff. I like taking photos. I used to be really heavily into oil painting and drawing, and so I wanted to share stuff there. And then it just kind of died. I had Instagram like everybody else had Instagram. And in 2020 is when I really started to pick up on my posting, researching more of my social media like tactics, and starting to actually post consistently and things that were consistent in and of themselves. Not just like my friends or just like a birthday party, but like consistently landscape photography. And I think it was then that it started to really pick up, and I was getting more likes, like I was having a bunch of new followers. But yeah, it was funny because most people would start a brand new Instagram for something like that. But I already kind of had like my friends and a few other like family members who were supporting me, and I was getting interactions there. So I was just like, this is my life. Why would I start a new account at this point? Since then, I had started a couple of other accounts for like my portraiture and for like film photography, but those never really took off as much, and I just liked to continue with what I was doing there. That was my account, and my own like personal stuff was going on there anyway.
That's super interesting. I think one of the strategies that people always say, and you did this to an extent, is like niche down, focus in on one thing and only post about that. But it's cool to know that, even your personal account or this account that you had that was kind of like all over the place for a time, you weren't super consistent, can still be revived to an extent and then turn into, a pretty successful account. I would say very successful, with just over 40,000 followers now. So tell me about like those early days of posting. Was there, before 2020, like, was there any rhyme or reason? Was it just a portfolio? Were you just putting things out?
I think that I had started to just kind of catch the bug a little bit, because most of what Instagram has been for me has been sharing my work and my obsession with like landscape photography. And so what I was really doing was like, I captured something cool I wanted somebody else to see that and appreciate that. And I kind of wanted the validation that what I was doing was good. And so what I started with was some of the advice that I'd seen before, which was post consistently and at the same time. And so I just started doing that. Using hashtags was also something I started doing. I actually went to all of my favorite landscape photographers and copied all the hashtags they were using, and then kept those into notes, and I would just kind of sort those out and like pick different ones depending on what I thought was relevant for the photo I had taken. That kind of came from my mentor, who always would say, like, copy genius, don't create mediocrity. So I wasn't like going through trying to find hashtags. I was just like, if these guys are using them and they're successful, then those are probably good hashtags, so I'm just going to use them for my stuff. And it worked. And the first post that I ever felt like I really got traction on, I got like 400 likes. Before that, I was getting like 70 likes, and I was like, yeah. So there was a bunch of new people coming to my account. And after that, it really was just a ton of consistent posting. It wasn't really until a lot later that my account took off.
And how many followers did you have? Like you said, you'd get like 70 likes, but how many followers did that account have of family, friends, people that you knew?
It's like 700 or something. It was like everyone from high school, just random kind of people that I had met along the way, like my grandma's aunts, sisters, brother-in-law, stuff like that. Nothing crazy.
Cool. So let's keep this focus on Instagram. Mm-hmm. I might be jumping a little bit ahead, but again, looking over your account, you now have 6 videos that have reached more than 1 million views, 6 reels, I should say, which is incredible. I think anybody would want that, right? But like, and I would also say, like, there are a lot of creators who have, one video go crazy viral, and that's like a huge win. That's a huge success. You get a lot of eyeballs, but you've done that 6 times. Talk about that.
Did you notice anything consistent with those videos that went viral?
I mean, they were all beautiful. They've all been very, they're all really well done. And for me, they grabbed the attention right away. But I'm curious, like, what you've done that you feel was consistent across those videos that have gone viral.
The thing that I've noticed is that it's all about film photography. All of my stuff that I had been making before about just like regular like landscape stuff or like regular adventure content had kind of been done and done over again, and is still being done over again. And so I really got into film photography when I started to work at a local camera shop. And I bought this camera called a Pentax 6x7 MLU. It's a medium format camera. It shoots humongous negatives. And the attractive factor of it is it's big and chunky and makes a loud noise when you take a photo. It's really loud. And my first video that did really well, I had taken that camera to Hawaii and was taking a bunch of film photos there. None of them are really that good. They're okay. But I think people were really attracted to the uniqueness of the camera. And it was kind of a niche subject. Film had just barely started to get kind of popular again. And I really loved film. And so I was like, I'm just going to make some videos about my film camera because that's kind of cool. And it just took off like immediately. That one was like 1 million views in like a week and killed it on Instagram. And then I kept doing those for a little bit, and I was getting consistent like 60 to 100,000 view videos for a while. And then I had my most popular video, which was the same thing, but for Glacier National Park. I said I brought my 50-year-old camera to Glacier National Park. I'm going to show you all the photos that I took with it, basically. And the way that I had done it was I had a mount attached to the camera so I could film the top-down view of the camera. Another unique part of it is that it's not a normal camera that you look through a viewfinder. You look straight down through it into this little piece of glass that shows you the image that you're looking at. And I did that and had it all click through and matched it up, synchronized it to the beat of the music, and people just went wild over that. It was like satisfying, and it was really cool photos, and it was really unique because it's an old camera that's taking like photos that are better than anybody else's phones. And so I think that was really unique and kind of instilled a little bit of wonder into people and got them to look at my account a little bit more. And since then, every single video that's gone crazy has been that film camera taking photos.
What do you think that like other creators, maybe other photographers, because I assume those are going to be the people who watch this episode, what kind of takeaway can they get from that? Like, maybe not like use an old film camera, but what can they do to apply that to their account to maybe have a little bit of uniqueness and see some growth?
I think there's one strategical thing and then one that I think is just kind of important to remember. The strategical thing, I think, is to look for things that people aren't doing. It's great to copy some people and to do some really simple videos. Like I see lots of really beautiful landscape. Like I went to this place and it's just like look at your feet and then look up at the beautiful view. And those are great, but they get old after a little time. Unless you have some sort of insanely crazy view or you have some incredible portrait photography. It's just not going to hit quite as hard because people have seen it before. So I'd recommend trying your best to look for things that you're already doing that might be unique to Instagram. And then the second thing that I think is really important is to post what you love specifically, because the film photography for me wasn't anything other than a opportunity for me to start posting stuff that I really loved. And film was all 100% just a hobby thing for me. It wasn't about making any money. It wasn't about advertising that as like one of my like features in my like products or whatever. It was just like, this is fun. I really enjoy this. And I think that that resonated with people and attracted people to my page. And so I think that if you're posting things that you truly love and trying to make it as high quality and as just as like excellent as you can, don't post stuff that's blurry. Don't post stuff that's like just meh. But post stuff that you love and you appreciate, and I think that'll come across. And the followers who will appreciate your account will just come to you.
So I want to focus on what you just said about, high quality, making it something that you're passionate about, but then also coming through with that quality. I think that's super important, especially as a photographer, as somebody who's showcasing their work as a professional, especially on Instagram. But now I want to shift a little bit to your following on TikTok, where on that platform, there tends to be a little bit more of like, people want to see the raw thing. They want to see the very natural, it doesn't have to be so pretty. What's your take on that? And what have you done to get up to the 10,000 plus followers that you have over there?
It's kind of similar stuff. I feel like it's mostly just like my film content that's really been popular. And I loved what you said there. It's very real on TikTok. Instagram does kind of feel like it's just kind of the big show most of the time, which is fine. That's how you advertise yourself and how you make it work. And on TikTok, it really has been more of like I think the one that did really well for me was I talked about a mistake I had made, actually. I said that I had brought some black and white film on this really important special hike that I had tried to go on. And I had meant to bring color film, but I didn't bring any color film. I had totally forgotten it. And so I was like, here's how they turned out anyway. And you kind of go through the video, same kind of clicks and actions and stuff, and shows, hey, it actually turned out pretty well. And like, I think that was really helpful. So for TikTok, I've been really careful about just trying to post stuff that's more like fun and interesting. Usually the things that are just kind of like that work on Instagram that are really like cool and spectacular have never really worked for me on TikTok. So I've tried to stick with those film reels, kind of just posting fun content like that. Every now and then I'll share something from Instagram that I posted that's like the same, and I'll just put it right back onto TikTok, and it never works as well as the more real content, like you said.
No, that's way cool. I think that's some really good insight for those who are trying to maybe differentiate or grow on either or both platforms. One thing that you mentioned when you're talking about that video that you put out on TikTok, and I assume you do some cross-platform, as in you repurpose your work on TikTok and Instagram, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, but one thing that I've noticed with your account is you're a photographer, right? You do film photos. You're a creative. You do all sorts of things, and it would be really easy for you to say like, check out these pictures, and then you show the pictures. But I've noticed that you kind of like bring the viewer on a journey with you, whether that be the hike that you're going on, or you bring the person into the content. So it feels like I was there when you were taking those pictures. Like, how have you learned to do that? And then how have you been able to capitalize on that with your content?
That's actually a really great point. That's something that I learned a long time ago, is that people like being treated as though they're an individual that you're talking to. And so whenever I've posted on my stories, whenever I've posted on TikTok, Instagram, I try to address people as, or tell a story as if I'm talking to one person. I'm not saying, hey, all of you people. I'm more trying to say like, hey, this is like something I wanted to show you. This is really cool. Here's what I did. And the storytelling portion of that, I think, is where or just storytelling in general is really what's important with photography, because you can just show photos, but if they don't kind of go together, then they don't really work, and it's not as interesting to look at. And I think some people need to be prompted to kind of know what they're looking for, and so having a catchy kind of title at the beginning has really helped me. So kind of the format that I usually do is, here's the kind of like interesting, unique thing that happened. Here is where I am, and here is what happened, kind of a thing. So like here's like I'm shooting on this 50-year-old camera is usually the first thing that I always say. And then I say I brought it to Glacier National Park, Yellowstone National Park, brought it to this unique place that not a lot of people always go to. And then here's either something weird that happened while I was there, or here's the photos, get ready to see them, kind of a thing. And then it brings them through that sequence, and they're like, okay, I know what's going to happen, I know what he's doing, and that's kind of unique, so I'm kind of curious how this is going to turn out. And I get satisfied by looking at these photos. I've noticed a few people like to post the videos of their film cameras, and then they don't show the photos at the end. I think that's the worst thing ever, because there's no reward for watching the video. So I like to make sure that people are awarded for taking the time to look at my stuff.
I think you've hit on something that's really sometimes hard for us to understand as creatives when we're trying to create stuff. We understand it. Like you know, even a moment ago during this episode, you mentioned a name of a camera, and I'm like, oh, I don't know what that is. You know, you obviously, you're the professional. You're very well versed in that space. But we think that because we know it, you know, we just assume everybody else has a general idea of what we're talking about. But if you can really break it down and hold their hand and say, no, this is where I am, this is what I'm doing, and this is my result, whatever that is, that's going to come across a lot more, you know, like simple for the person who's watching. And we're already pretty mindless while we're scrolling, right? Mm-hmm. So being very simple, straightforward, I think draws people in. They're like, wow, what it, you know, creates the curiosity that you talked about and all that. So where did you learn this? Was this like through practice that you've just done this? Have you seen other creators do this?
I mean, there's definitely a few. I think that it was more just kind of like other creators that I would see do something like that, and I just tried to make it my own. I don't know. It was sort of lucky in a way, as is a lot of social media. I think it's just a little bit of luck kind of playing in your favor. I just happened to say the right thing and do the right thing. But the other thing that I would notice with that kind of stuff helping people a lot is how other creators that I looked up to would interact with people in the comment section specifically. And so most people are confused, as you said, about what's happening in a video, because most people post videos and it's kind of ambiguous. It's kind of just something's happening and people are drawn in because they're like, what the freak is happening right now? And so I think that title sequence kind of gives people the opportunity to ask questions. And as those questions come through the comments, I try to be very on top of responding to them in a nice way, but also just in an informative way. I have a lot of people that ask me, what camera is this? And even though it's in my caption, I'm ready to go and explain like what that camera specifically is. I think that's my top comment right now is, what camera is this?
That's super cool that like even when it's there, you're still willing to go in there and say it's this, you know, and create that extra engagement and create followers that are more than followers. They become fans, right? Because they're like, wow, this guy like he's nice enough to say this is the camera that I'm using. I'm gonna wait for this guy's next piece of content. Along with that, like I want to pivot just a little bit, because I had the thought that when you're specifically like photographers and stuff, a lot of the accounts that I see, they tend to sync their videos with really cool audios, and that creates a, you know, you mentioned putting the text on the screen. So even if you're watching it on mute, you still are able to follow along. But what's your process of like finding a good audio that goes along with the footage that you took? Is it like when you're scrolling, you think, oh, that's an audio that I could use, I'm going to save that and maybe use that in the future? Or do you put something together and then try and look for an audio? What does that process look like?
That's a good question. There's kind of three different ways that I've done audios. Either I've just mindlessly scrolled reels for an hour until I find like 2 or 3 that I think are cool and I like, and then I'll save them and then sync them later and kind of be like, I like this audio, I'm going to make a video work for the audio specifically. So sometimes I'll start with audio and then add video to the audio to make it work. Sometimes I'll make a video and I'll have like all the photos and I'll already have an audio in mind. And that gets tricky if it's not something that's already trending, because I really like to use trending audios. You can go to the trending audio tab in Instagram and scroll through like 50 audios and find one that works well, and that's nice. And I always try to keep them to like a fresh audio, something less than like 8,000 uses. I think those ones have been the most successful. I usually end up with those videos that do well at the top of that audio, and I think that's helpful because if that audio is trending, most people will click on that, look at the video, and it's kind of a unique like top-down look. People are like, what's that video? And click on it. So that's where I've gotten a lot of my interactions from. And then the other thing that works is they kind of both kind of happen at the same time. I'm like making a video, and then while I'm like out exploring or taking these photos, I hear another audio, and I'm like, that would be perfect for this. And so I just save that and make it work. A lot of the time that happens really well through TikTok, where I've seen an audio do well on TikTok, and 99% of the time audios that do well on TikTok happen first and then do well on Instagram. So my very first viral video, like million video, that one was an audio that was doing well on TikTok, and it had like 10 uses on Instagram. And so I was like, it's probably gonna work. And I used it on Instagram, and then it took off, and now it has like 25,000 uses or something like that. But
wow,
that's kind of like the three different ways, and all of them I think work to an extent. But that's like probably the easiest way to make something work for you, because you kind of have to make it work most of the time, because not all the time is it going to be perfect for you.
Yeah. So audios have been a hot topic in the past of like, use a trending audio. That's what's going to get you success. Do you still feel like that's relevant, that still works as a photographer to use, like you just mentioned, your strategy of using an audio with lower uses and then letting you kind of ride that wave of a trending audio? Have you noticed that still working in your account today?
It depends. I think that that's starting to not be as relevant anymore. I think that the most important thing is that you have an audio that works. I think that if it has, in my opinion, if it has 100,000 uses, but it's perfect for your video, it's just beautiful, it makes everything sync up nicely, it's the right message, it's the right vibe, I think that's going to work better than if you pick something that's kind of okay, but is trending. I think ultimately it's about your placement of your audio, not about if it's trending or not. I think that can be helpful. I think that if you have one that's trending, low uses, and makes your video look awesome, I think that's like a perfect combination. That equation makes it really easy to go viral. But I think that the important part is that you have a audio that looks and sounds really good with your video or your photos, whatever you're doing at that point.
So I want to pivot again and talk about something a little bit different. And that's consistency, a really hot topic with social media. You mentioned that, like you said, in 2020, that's when I started to get a little bit more consistent, not just with how much I was posting, but what I was posting. I want to talk about post frequency specifically. Mm-hmm. How often are you posting, and how have you seen that, translate into success?
Oh, I'm one of the worst at consistent posting. I'll go for like a week and be like, boom, like every single day, have like at least a post. Sometimes I like to do, my favorite kind of way to do it is Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I do like reels or like really important carousels that I really like. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays end up kind of being my like, I'll throw another post on there kind of a thing. Oh, this sounds like something fun to post. Like I'll just post it. And I don't really care too much about those. So I try to post every day except for Saturdays and Sundays. Saturdays I'll post a lot of like stories and stuff and just be like, hey, this is what I'm doing, because usually I'm out shooting or doing something busy. And then Sundays I get a lot of my content ready. I just kind of will like scroll audios, maybe get a few photos edited, maybe put together a few things so that when that trending audio comes in and it sounds good and is perfect and it's early, I can just jump on that with the stuff that I've already created. But then sometimes I'll just be gone for like a week, and I just have stuff that I get busy with. I go on vacation, I go and shoot for a week. This last week, my 2 posts that I just posted recently didn't do very well because I was gone for 5 days in the desert doing photography. I didn't have good consistent service, couldn't really post, and I get hurt for that sometimes. But in the end, I think what mattered most to me was that I lived my life, and I'm still going to post. It's still going to be fine. Instagram picks back up with you, but I definitely believe that being consistent is what brings in the most amount of interaction and thus the most amount of followers, for sure.
I think that's some really, really good wisdom. Do you feel like when you've gone a while without posting that the algorithm, our best friend, the algorithm, do you feel like it does tend to, hurt you a little bit and you don't get as much reach when you're trying to get back in after that period of maybe being away?
Yes, I don't know if it's true. Sometimes I feel like that's kind of just a myth that people think, and they're like, "Oh, I got shadow banned because I didn't post enough times." I think Instagram doesn't necessarily do that. I think it awards you for posting more because it's a business. It wants you to have as many people coming onto Instagram as possible. And so if you can get people to get onto Instagram, then it awards you with more views because it wants people to be looking at the app. And I think if you're gone for a little while, it just takes a minute for Instagram to recognize like that you're posting again. And so usually within like 3 days of posting consistently, I'm back to my normal like count and interaction count. So if you
Cool.
do go without a few weeks, then I think it's okay. I think you can come back from it pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I think you said something that I think a lot of people will resonate with, which is live your life. Like, don't let social media dictate how happy you are or what you're doing that week. Go on your shoot, go in the desert, have your time, live in that moment, and Instagram will still be there when you get back.
100%.
Keep living. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, 100%.
So on that note, sometimes being a creator, it's easy to get down on yourself because, oh, I haven't posted this week or I haven't done this thing, or, you get a wave of negative comments or whatever it may be, especially with the increased, visualization on your account, on your page. You're going to get people who disagree with whatever you're doing or that. How do you combat the negative forces of the world in social media? And have you dealt with that very much?
Oh man, I feel like most people have been really nice to me, and maybe because I'm really nice to people, and maybe I'm just lucky. I have some female creators who get absolutely blown to shreds for doing the exact same things that I'm doing, and I think sometimes you just get unlucky. You get put in front of the wrong people, and that sucks. And I think the important thing is to make your friends, know who values you, and listen to their feedback. I have lots of group chats with other photographers who tell me this is good or this is bad, and I'll listen to them a billion times before I listen to user 183957210 saying this sucks. I could do this better with my phone. And so, yeah, the negativity part. I mean, Instagram and social media is just like it's a lot, and I think that's why it is important to take some time for yourself. We just had a newborn baby. We're dealing with all of the fun of that right now. I still manage to post a little bit here and there, but I'm definitely not nearly as active as I was for a little while there. And I think the people that really care about you, that really truly appreciate the whatever content you're making, they're going to stick around. They like you as a person. They like the stuff that you're making. They're not going to leave just because you're taking care of yourself. And so I think it's important to communicate that. I never apologize for being gone. If I'm like, hey, like, sorry I've been missing for a little while, I think that's kind of silly because you aren't sorry. You did something that was important, and you worked on things that were important for you. And I think if you tell people that, like, hey, I was gone because I was doing this. I've been staying up all night long with my newborn baby. I've been in the desert shooting for a week. People like to see that you are a normal person living your life, and I think that even helps with your followers too, to just be more consistent and see you as a real person.
Would you say that as far as social media platforms go, obviously we've talked a little bit about Instagram and TikTok. Are you on any other platforms? And would you say that Instagram is kind of your main focus?
Instagram's definitely my main focus. I scroll TikTok a lot more than I scroll through Instagram. Mainly just because it's entertaining and it's fun. I waste a lot of time there. I do post on Facebook every now and then. I'm part of a lot of Facebook groups. That's how I find a lot of my clients. I wouldn't say that it's like something that I'm trying really to like grow per se. The next thing that I'm delving into right now is YouTube. I think YouTube is probably the best place for creators right now in terms of consistency with people who watch your stuff, with finding paying clients. If you're a photographer who's looking for like brand deals and stuff, I think getting onto YouTube and doing stuff through YouTube is vital. And also YouTube, I get paid by Instagram, but Instagram wouldn't pay me nearly as much as if I had the same amount of stuff on YouTube. If I was on YouTube doing what I was doing now, and getting the same views that I was doing now, I think I would be not applying to medical school anymore.
Are you on YouTube then? Are you posting your like shorts over there, similar to the videos that you've done?
Barely made my YouTube for the first time. I finally have kind of got my setup that I want to do. I'm going to be doing a lot of like tutorial information on film photography, astrophotography, videography, stuff like that. I'm going to be posting those shorts as well, just there to kind of help hopefully draw people into my account to say like, hey, this is a cool camera, this is a cool thing that you're doing. How can I do that too? I want to be able to share that with people. And I also want to give people from Instagram something more. So people can come to my YouTube and say, hey, that was a really cool photo. I want to know how you edited it. And I don't think Instagram is necessarily the best place to show stuff like that because it's such like short format stuff. And I really need more time to explain stuff. And so I think YouTube is going to be better for me there. But yeah, that's my next like adventure, my project is YouTube.
So when you approach something new like this, you're going, okay, I'm gonna try YouTube. What is your thought process? Are you the type that's like, I need to watch a bunch of YouTube videos, I'm gonna watch a bunch of other people consume their content and then produce? Or are you kind of just like, hey, I'm just gonna go for this thing. I'm gonna create a video and post it, see how it goes, and then go from there?
I think that is a really good way to get disappointed really quickly and to just like struggle. I mean, that's what I did with photography for a long time was post this. People are like, that sucks. Take a photo like this and be like, oh my gosh, that's so grainy. Why did I do it that way? I think it's better to just be as informative as possible. But at a certain point, you have to kind of jump off the cliff and just dive in because if you don't, then you're kind of stuck saying, oh, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. So I have one video that is almost ready to post. I have put in a lot of research to make sure that I have all the basics covered. It looks good. It's like actually like high quality, so it's not going to be like blurry. I haven't done anything like egregious or terrible. But ultimately, it's going to be my first video. And so is it going to look like all of my other videos in the future? Probably not, but you always have to have the first time. So I think sometimes it's important to do a lot of research and sometimes you just kind of got to jump in.
How do you find that balance, Ben? Like, how do you find the balance of doing all the research, feeling as prepared as possible, while also not getting in a state of like analysis paralysis to the point that you don't end up doing anything? I find myself as a creative, thinking so hard sometimes that I'm in a lot of motion, but I'm not taking a lot of action. I'm not jumping off the cliff. So how do you find that balance?
I think that I'm realizing more and more that we talk that I really depend a lot on my friends who are also in the creative community. I think if you can have an opportunity to make friends, that'll be super useful to you in the long run because you have a whole wealth of information to you through the hive mind. Like people that can say, this is good, this is bad, this is awesome, this is kind of awesome, or whatever. But what I like to do is reach out to my friends and say, I feel nervous about this. What do you think about this idea or something like that? And if I can just get one person to say, that's a great idea, I love that idea, you should definitely do that, suddenly like I'm ready to do it. I'm on it. I'm going to make that video. I'm going to post it as soon as possible because at least one person thinks that it's cool. And if one person thinks it's cool, then it doesn't really matter if everybody else thinks that it's lame, but it's fine. The whole point is that if one person can kind of get you to be pushed off the cliff a little bit, then I think that is a good way to go. Usually it's my wife. My wife tends to be the person that pushes me off the cliff. Says, that looks really cool, and then I post it. Sometimes it does well, sometimes it doesn't. But maybe I shouldn't trust her anymore.
No, I think that's some really wise words right there. I think like I mentioned earlier about being a creative, sometimes it's kind of a lonely thing. We do things mostly on our own. You're behind your phone more than you are like interacting like face to face with people that are following you and that type of a thing. Mm-hmm. So where have you found the best success in finding people who can kind of be that support group? I know you mentioned you reached out to some photographers early on. Are there other places that you've been able to find people like that?
Facebook groups have been really helpful, especially beginners Facebook groups, because usually you kind of grow with people. A lot of my friends that I have that are photographers right now that are 50, 100,000 followers, they were at like 4,000 followers when I was at like 2,000 followers. We're all kind of in it together, growing together. A lot of them have had way more success than I have, mainly because they went full-time with it, but I'm happy for them and I'm excited for them. And a lot of that is because we all collaborate and we all are able to give advice. I still have my 500,000 follower friends asking me, what do you think of this video? Do you think I did this right? Do you think that colors look good on this? Do you think the audio sounds good on this? And I think that's kind of cool. It's important to have those friends. So I found a lot of them through just interacting with other accounts. I would see someone who had not very many followers, but I saw that they were taking really cool photos. They were nice. I'd seen their photos before. And I would comment on their posts over and over again. And eventually we just kind of, maybe I was kind of lucky, honestly, now that I think about it. Because we had a nice little group of Utah photographers who all just slowly started interacting together at the same time. And we hit it off. We started going on little trips together and being friends. And I think that's where that mainly started. But I think that was mainly because we had a few individuals who decided to be very outgoing, to invite people places, to start group chats and say, hey, I noticed you all. You're all kind of my friends on Instagram. I think you would all be really cool with each other and like get to know each other better. Let's start this chat so we can kind of post something here and say, hey, I posted this. Like if you want to go and take a look at it, that'd be really cool. Or, hey, I'm thinking about posting this. What do you guys think about that? And that kind of started a lot for us in our little community.
That is so cool. That's such an interesting idea. I think that even if you're not a photographer and you're listening to this, just to, find a way to grow on social media, I think branching out from the platform itself, finding people who are like-minded and trying to get them together, maybe be that outgoing friend. If you feel like you're not getting invited, maybe just invite some people. Like, I think you've already shown that that's paid dividends. It's been a cool thing for you to work with like-minded people, get some validation on your work, get some inspiration, and so on and so forth. That's super cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's been one of the most helpful things for me, for sure.
So Ben, if you're talking to somebody who's like, dude, I love photography, I want to get started, but I don't feel like I've got the chops. I don't know if I've got what it takes. Like, what might your advice be to them if they're starting from zero right now?
It's a great question. First of all, reach out to me. I'm so happy to help with things like that. There's no dumb questions. There's just questions that are misinformed. You're new. You're going to ask questions that I would personally go, how does he not know about that? But I'm never going to tell you, how do you not know about that? So if you need someone and you're like, I don't even know who to reach out to, I can be that person for you for right now. But I genuinely think that reaching out to people is the number one way that you can grow quickly. You'll gain someone who's rooting for you. You'll gain important information and insight. And you'll jump a bunch of steps. You won't have to watch the 40 YouTube videos that I had to watch in order to get the one answer that I really needed from one person. The best example I had for that was astrophotography. I could not figure out why I wasn't getting super sharp, crisp Milky Way photos like I would see all these other astrophotographers getting. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? Here's my settings. Here's all the stuff that I'm doing. Here's one of my example photos. And then the photographer said, this is a great photo, you just don't have a star tracker. That's literally the only thing that you're missing right now. And I'd watched so many videos trying to figure it out. And that one little piece of information set me down creating some of the most detailed, incredible Milky Way photos of all time. But only because I had to ask somebody, because I didn't know. So don't be afraid to ask people for help, because that's where you're going to get the best information.
So Ben, I love that you just invited people to reach out to you. But I think it's pretty natural that when you see somebody on social media who's got 40,000 plus followers, maybe 100, maybe 1 million followers, it's easy to think so I'm going to DM this person. There's a really slim chance that they're actually going to get back. How true do you think that is? And why do you think you should just do it anyway?
So the DMs are hard sometimes because they get sent and filtered into recently viewed or something. I personally am really good about looking at messages because I like to interact with people and I get bored, and so it's fun to message people. There's a bunch of people I've messaged who have just never responded, and it's mostly just that they've not even seen the message. It gets thrown down to the bottom of their messages because they have tons of things coming through all the time. I don't think it hurts to reach out. I don't think that anyone is not responding on purpose, and if they are, once again, not a person that you want to get advice from. They're not going to be helpful to you in the long run. And so don't be afraid to reach out, because the worst that can happen is they just don't respond. If they tell you that you suck and you're the worst, then block them. Just get away from them, because they're not someone you should be looking up to at all.
I think that's such an interesting, even myself right now, I'm thinking, I'm sure there are people that I could reach out to that know a lot more than I do that are probably willing to help. I'm
Probably
just
scary.
I'm just not. Yeah. I'm just too scared to reach out. I don't know. It feels like that isn't something that like would be possible. But I mean, obviously, social media is social for a reason. It's a
Right.
way to connect with other people, and that's what you've been able to do. So another way that you mentioned that you've used social media is to land clients. Do you have much experience with landing clients through social media? And what have been best practices to get clients perform your services?
A lot of it has been just clients reaching out to me specifically. I haven't really done very much with advertising, like prompts or any kind of like running ads on Instagram. I haven't tried that yet. I've heard really good things. I've heard that it works really well. It's for very specific things like weddings, elopements. If you're trying to do stuff like that, portraiture, that works really well. But most of the brands that I've worked with have reached out to me or have been referred to by another creator or something like that. As you grow, you will get lots of people reaching out saying, I've got this thing. You should take photos of it for us. We'll give it to you. That's it, kind of a thing. And I think an important thing to remember as a creator is that you have to start somewhere. Don't start with something lame. Don't start with unless you're like a creator who's very specific with that brand. They give you the dream thing. You have a dog and they're like, hey, we have these dog collars. Will you take photos of them? And that's your thing? Cool. For me, if someone reached out and said, we have dog collars to take photos of, will you do it for like 5% commission on every dog collar you sell? I'd be like, absolutely not. I'm not going to do that for you. It's not worth my time. So be aware of what is worth your time and don't settle for something that's just not worth it for you. I've had so many brands reach out saying that they want me to take photos for something for no pay. And it's hard to say no because you really want to get that experience. And I think that there are some brands who are really good. I started a lot with a brand called Qualitry. You ever heard of them? Make that look like trailhead pants. Like they always post the videos like super waterproof pants, like super cool hiking gear, stuff like that. They reached out to me. They wanted to like send me a bunch of stuff just to like. They had no contract. They're like, post about it. It'd be cool. Like if you can just share some content about it, that'd be awesome. So I was like, this is a good place to kind of practice getting some good photos for somebody else, not just for me, for what I like. And that slowly kind of turned into a bunch of other brands. My first big brand that reached out to me, they were like a real deal kind of situation, and I was so excited about it. And they were like, how much do you want us to pay you for this reel that you're going to post? And I was like, I don't know. I've never done this before. And they were so nice to me. It was great. And when you get a real brand, they're usually really nice. So I said, I could probably post a 30-second reel for like $250. And they were like, oh, no, we're not going to do that. That's dumb. We're thinking more like $750. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Cool. But really it just took a lot of time to get there. Making content that is consistent with your personal brand attracts clients, and they'll just find stuff that works for you. I think that a lot of my friends do media kits, which is super helpful. If you like a brand, you think you have a good fit with them, make yourself a media kit, show how many followers you have, show what your interactions are like, show some example photos, and just email it to them. You never know what's going to happen. There's a lot of risk and reward, but the risk really isn't that bad. Most of the time they just ignore your email. But every now and then they'll reach out and give you something really cool and set you down the path of full-time content creation.
Yeah. Have you had experience with reaching out to people that have resulted in a pretty cool brand deal?
Yeah, so one that I recently just did was a company called ProMaster. I'm really excited to work with them. It's super fun. They're just a camera gear company. And I reached out to them, and they just were like, hey, we have this really cool product we're kind of going for a vintage vibe with it, and your film photography stuff would work really well with it, actually. So, yeah, we'd be super interested in helping you. And I was like, great, that works perfectly. That one was sort of just like off the wall, kind of like, hey, I should message these guys. I see that a lot of my friends are working with them. So I'm going to message them. And I think that if you're noticing other creators who are kind of in your same vein, working with specific brands, that brand is probably a good brand, first of all, because people like working with them, and willing to work with creatives. And so I think they're pretty safe to start sending stuff to. If anything, they'll put you on a list, and they might reach out to you later. At least that's what I've been told by a couple of brands. They haven't ever reached out to me yet. But, I'm on a list.
Even if it's a lie. At least there's something, yeah. At least, right. No, that's super cool. Ben, I want to wrap up with you. You've given
Yep.
so much wisdom. It's been super, super incredible to talk to you. One thing that I think you've mentioned it twice, is you talked about luck. And I want to break that down a little bit, because I think that as a creator, there's definitely luck involved. But how much would you attribute getting up to 40,000 plus followers? And might I add, you're growing rapidly right now. I've noticed that your account has been growing just since I first reached out to do this interview. So you're still growing tremendously. Like, how much would you attribute to, boy, I was in the right place at the right time, I posted the right thing? And how much would you attribute to, no, I put my head down and I was just on the grind?
Let's consider this. The first video that I had that did well. First of all, I didn't have Reels for a long time. They were withheld from me. I didn't have them for like a year, which kind of sucked most of the time. When they were really taking off, I didn't have them, which was kind of sad. But my first video reel that did really well was at the beginning of 2022. Or no, beginning of 2023. And I had been posting consistently since 2020. So it had been about 2.5 to 3 years before I really took off. And so a lot of it is being consistent, working really hard, posting stuff that you love and you like and is interesting to you and is high quality, elevating it to a certain extent. And then after all you can do, after everything that you've done, and in the end, there's still just a little bit of luck that needs to happen. You need to have the right thing happen for you. But if you are being consistent, if you're posting high quality content, and you're doing all the other things all the other little pieces of advice that people give, it's really only a matter of time. And I think that the best way that you can not go viral is to just stop posting. So if it's just kind of like you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. If you aren't posting, you're not going to grow. And so you kind of have to battle through those 100 like posts, those 50 like posts, to get to those 400,000 like posts. It's just not going to happen unless you're doing stuff. So there is a little bit of luck involved, and so don't be discouraged if your high quality content isn't doing very well, because at one point or another it's going to do well. I think it's only a matter of time at that point.
That's way cool. I hear all the time, don't compare your day 1 to their day 100, right? And it took you just said 2.5 to 3 years before you started to see the big results that have now carried your account to where you're at. I mean, that's consistency right there. And that's super cool. I know I said last question, but I want to just finish with this. How did you, in those 2.5 years that you were like getting 50, 70 likes and it felt like this isn't going anywhere, how did you keep going?
I think that you can see other people do well and get discouraged, or you can see other people do well and say, that could be me. And I had a lot of friends who were at the same point as me, and had been posting very similar things to me, and had gotten to that 50,000 follower mark or whatever. Or my goal at the beginning of 2023 was to reach the 10,000 follower mark. By the end of 2023, I reached 30,000 followers. So I had seen people do that, and it made me realize that I could do that too. I think you could say to yourself, oh, it's never going to happen for me. But I think the better thing to do is to say that could definitely happen to me, because it's happened consistently multiple times before. And if you're feeling very unconfident about what you've made, if you're feeling lackluster in your stuff, I think that's always a good time to reach out to someone that you trust and say, realistically, is this good stuff? Would you watch this, or is this kind of boring? Is this kind of lame? And if it is, be humble enough to say, okay, cool, I got to pivot and do something else, maybe.
Ben, it's been such a pleasure to have you here. I'm already excited to go back and listen to this entire conversation, pull out some nuggets of wisdom that I can apply to myself and to my work as a creator and as a creative. So I'm excited for others to get their hands on this. Do you have any last words that you'd like to share?
No, I'm looking forward to hopefully getting a couple of messages, helping some people on the way, and I'm going to have to listen to this too. Maybe I said some stuff that was just kind of random that I'll probably need to remember myself at this point.
Deep wisdom right there. Shedding wisdom that you didn't even know was inside you.
Bada bing.